The following podcast is being brought to you by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Welcome to Aftergate, powered by the Defy Life Network. Aftergate is a podcast series highlighting Colgate alumni of color in their professional endeavors after Gate. Aftergate is hosted by Alvin Glimpf, aka Al, and Herman Dubois, aka Jerry. We are doing Aftergate because Colgate University has produced innovators who have changed the world every day. Yet many alumni of color in the mainstream Colgate community are unaware of the amazing accomplishments of Colgate alumni of color.
If you're into all things comics, you have to check out Take a Knee for Marvel vs. DC, your go-to podcast for comic and superhero discussion, debates, polls, and more. Tune in as Regular Scott and Ozzy Killmonger chat about your favorite comic topics, and you never know who may show up for an open mic, or what will be next on their favorite One Gotta Go. Take a Knee for Marvel vs. DC, every Sunday, powered by the Defy Life Podcast Network.
Welcome back for another episode of After Gate. This is your boy Al. I'm here with my co-host Jerry, and we're looking forward to this conversation with one of our homeboys from during our time. So looking forward to that. But first, let me check in with you, Jerry. How you doing, bro?
All is well. All is well. We finally got past Hurricane Elsa / tropical storm, which really didn't, hit us. It was kind of like it called the audible, which is always a good thing.
That's a great thing.
And we call it a little rain, but it's rainy season, so it's all good. But yeah, we in paradise, so can't complain.
Good stuff. Good stuff. It's good to hear your voice. This time of day, this time of season in life, every day above ground, as my uncle used to say, is the best day of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's up. That's what's up. So, as we continue with this new segment, we are definitely trying to make sure we get our Colgate question in. How about what's your biggest regret during your time at Colgate? What you got?
The opportunity to take advantage of the student exchange programming that I know you gave tremendous insight to, and we know people who experience it at different levels. As an adult now, to be able to think of 4 months in another country just to absorb it all, and on Colgate's bill would have been very strategic and kind of like almost once in a lifetime kind of opportunities that you don't get too many of those once in a lifetime. So yeah.
Mine is similar. Just not being able to travel abroad is my big one. And I know there were really the biggest abroad trip at the time we were there was going to Nigeria. And
that was the trip to go on.
Right. I was really brash enough to think, oh man, I'll get to Africa without Colgate's. I don't need to go on Colgate's dime. And I didn't get there till 30 years later when I actually went with my daughter when she went to Cape Town. From that experience, I've really tried to tell youth that while you are at college, if you have the opportunity, travel abroad, because you're not going to get too many opportunities to travel for cheap.
Why? What was the obstacle? Or was there an were you the obstacle? Like, what was it that you just weren't orientated to know the options, or you knew and you just chose not to pursue them? Like, what was the reason in hindsight now?
I might have got waitlisted.
Alternate.
I was an alternate selection.
Right. Yeah. Well, in my case, I was going earlier. I tried to go. I actually was selected and then deselected for my sophomore semester in the fall, because for me, since I played baseball in the spring, I could only go on any kind of fall exchange program, and Nigeria was in the fall, and so had an interesting, let's say, clash with the faculty person that was the host faculty chaperone, and the administration. And so, uh, as I said, I was selected and deselected.
Mm.
So, yeah, it left a bad taste in my mouth. And there weren't at that time other abroad programs that I was interested in. And I guess I didn't know enough about the benefits of traveling abroad and to expand my horizons and see what
Hmm.
else was out there. But I understand now that the travel abroad strategies are much more student friendly, and students can really take advantage of seeing the world and pursuing their studies and pursuing culture and experiences. Just figure it this way: when else in your life would you be able to take 4 months and pack up, and be in another country, and then come back home like and just pick up where you left off from?
So we are blessed, in the truest words, to have our guest, Kevin Morrison, aka Shoot.
Yeah. I
Um,
was about to say, don't forget.
Hold
AK,
on. Time out. You ain't even supposed to be speaking right now yet, because we still doing our intro. All right.
AKA Shoot.
Just
Look at him.
take it in
Hey,
and appreciate the kudos. Now,
listen,
time out.
listen.
I gotta ask some questions first, because this
The
is like 30 years in 30-year question that I've been wanting to know this. But go ahead, Al. Go
I'm
ahead.
looking forward to that. Just the interactions of when we were classmates never cease, right? So as brothers that were, right in front of you in terms of class, because you were 90 class of 92.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So you were right there behind us. So had 3 years on campus with you, definitely
Overlap.
right, created a nice little bond. So looking forward to this conversation. So um Jerry, go ahead. I know you said you had a question to ask, so go ahead and jump on in there and
If there's one question that I have had several folk ask me about Colgate as it pertains to Kevin Morrison is, does everybody call him Shoe? And my response would be like, yo, not really sure, but if you don't have permission to call him Shoe, don't call him Shoe. Shoe is exclusive. Otherwise, it's Kevin, possibly Mr. Morrison.
I
So,
was about to say, Shoe is so exclusive that that's what everybody calls me because they don't know. Most people don't even know my real name, to be honest.
Facts.
there you go. So I have to ask: was that like intentional? Was it a strategy? Was it something that just kind of
Oh
ran?
man.
And in our time, it went viral before you could even really, like put your seal on it, or did you
I
come
Listen,
into
feel like I
Colgate
feel
with
like
that?
I'm on a guest show and I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh. I
the
think I know.
crazy,
I think I know. I think I know, but I'm gonna let you tell.
Jeopardy for 400.
No, no, no. I'm gonna let him tell it. I'll let you
the
tell it because
crazy
it's a
part
good
is,
story. It's a good story.
if you want to call it viral, viral nicknames are a part of my life. Literally, I had a viral nickname in the city where I live, where half of the people didn't know my name. So when I got to Colgate and earned that nickname
Earned it.
via a session of jokes, playing a dozen, cracking,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it, with one of your previous guests, Mr. Troy Kemp.
Oh, really, Mr. Kevin?
Yes,
I wish I would have known that. I would have
yeah.
known that.
Shoebox head was the initial joke because I had the high top fade.
But that
Everybody
was,
got a kick out of it.
Right, right.
that was the move then. That was the
Yes,
move. It
yes.
wasn't like
And
you
you
was
know,
outdated. You was in swag.
yes. As you can see, I'm trying to recreate those days. But yeah, shoebox head got shortened to shoe, and it stuck. I mean, literally, 30 years later.
Really?
30
33.
So
years
this
later.
happened, I guess, in football camp, like your
Yes, yes,
pre freshman summer, where you come in and get orientated to Colgate football.
yes, exactly. And as
And
you
he was an
know,
upperclassman, right? Is that the
yep,
case? He
yep,
was.
yeah. TK is
Mhm.
actually my host. He was one of the main
So he
reasons
was a
I went.
senior or junior when you were a freshman?
He was a junior.
Junior. Got you.
Yes.
Got you.
Yep,
And he was
yep.
your
And we
host.
ended up being roommates his senior year on Spring Street.
Oh, you
And I
was a
was a
spring streeter.
sophomore.
You was a
Yeah.
spring streeter. I didn't know. I
Yes,
had
yes,
forgotten
yes.
that. I have trauma from Spring Street.
Yeah. As you know, that's the pattern.
Yeah, yeah.
Never
Oh
made it
yeah.
out to where did you guys live? Yeah,
Earlville.
never made it
Earlville.
out to Earlville, but then again I did.
I was about to say you did make it out
I
there. You
was
just didn't have a
like,
residence out there,
if
but
I
you
can
you
recall.
was out there quite a
Yeah,
bit. You was out there quite a bit.
exactly. I made
And
my rounds in upstate New York, that's for sure.
without a doubt, without a doubt.
That's another show. We're gonna keep that
So
for a different show.
let's go back to that time. Now that we there, let's go on back to the Colgate year. So take us back. You are class of 92, so that means you came in fall of 1988.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
So take us back to that time in your world, in your life. What was going on in your world? What was going on in the world? Kind of might have influenced your time at Colgate, maybe influenced you even being at Colgate. Give us a sense of what that life was like.
Well, as you know, 88 from a Northeastern standpoint, and you two gentlemen being New Yorkers, already know we were literally in what many people call, the beginning of the golden era of hip hop. And, so hip hop having been infused in it since its beginning in 79, commercial beginning for me, because I'm from Connecticut. So I know you guys had heard it before, but being from Connecticut, being immersed in it for 9 years in '88, it was for me all about sports and hip hop, and just being a young adult, a young man. And since I lived in a small town, I was a medium, big to medium sized fish in a small town, having achieved some notoriety athletically, and having been shaped by many athletic experiences up until '88, it was all about, okay, I'm going to a school that has a good academic reputation and a good athletic reputation. And at the time, that's when the Godfather, as we call him, and he might kill me for this, Kenny Gamble had reached the height of his success, or not the height, but the pinnacle of his success at Colgate.
Correct.
So, I came in as a running back recruit, knowing that Kenny Gamble had set the standard that still stands in many ways to this day as a running back. And just to be even considered, to follow somebody like him, to me, just made my head even a little bit bigger than it was back then, as you have to be as an athlete in many respects.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what was going on in '88. And coming on the campus, I made sure that I came with some swag, or
Without a
tried to
doubt.
step my swag up a little bit more, because
Right.
I was going, on a campus that had people from all over the world.
So
So
it's interesting as I was preparing for this interview, like I definitely like tried to go back mentally to that time too. So I'm like, trying to remember the early days of meeting you. And so one of the things that kind of comes to mind is, one, you was definitely, as you talk about, the brother with the attitude, the swag, like, okay, I could connect. Don't know where he's from, but definitely
Arrogance,
from
the
the attitude
arrogance he
perspective,
brought. Yeah.
I'm with you, right? But one of the things I definitely remember, and this is kind of, you become homeboy by association, right?
Mhm.
So definitely it was one of those things, because you are a running back, and we were very cool with one of your good friends, Steve, that you got immediately,
Who was a
oh,
running back?
he's vouched and vetted and credited for,
Right.
because Steve is rolling with this kid. So while it might have been in other instances, I don't know this freshman, I don't know where he come from, very quickly it was like, you know what, if Steve can rock with him, come on in, you good with me, you good with us. So that's one of the things that definitely comes to mind, along with the homie gifts of you working in the post office, but that's a whole nother that's a whole nother
we got 2 more
conversation.
shows already.
Not,
We just
not for
added
the
2 more
podcast.
shows.
Not for the podcast. But
Right.
so talk to us about your life then, though, at college. I mean, you said you mentioned you was an athlete, coming from a small town. So
Yeah.
as you look back at your experiences there, what are some of the things that stand out? What are some of the things you're proud of? Just what was life like for you on campus?
Well, I mean, campus life to me, I went through the myriad, what I call the myriad of campus life, because, it started off in the dorms and matched with a roommate that, I automatically knew within one semester, like, I need to choose my roommate. So I stayed,
Wait, come on. Which dorm?
the lower dorms right across from the old gym. Is that
Okay.
Scotterell, right?
Cutting.
Cutting, yeah, Cutting.
Good
right
memory.
across.
Good memory.
Cotton Housing Complex that had 4 because it was similar to Bryan Complex where HRC was.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and that's I used to roll up to HRC on the regular
Oh,
because
we know, because you know.
my roommate, he was cool. We didn't have any problems. It just culturally wasn't a match. So within that, and it's funny because Hans had the same experience. So within one semester, me and Hans became roommates.
But time out. But Hans lived in HRC his freshman year.
Then, then maybe I did the whole year there. I'm trying to think. I thought it was within one semester. I had
But
switched.
but that don't guarantee nothing because I lived in HRC my freshman year and I didn't have the most pleasant experience because I did not have a roommate that I selected, and we're gonna leave it at that.
We'll leave it at
Yes,
that.
yes, as you eloquently told me not too long ago. But, and from there, it was okay. It was all about apartment life. So after my first year, I did the apartments across from the field. I'm blanking on these names.
Spring
And,
Street, no?
no, not Spring Street. Yes, South
Oh,
New
Newell.
Spring Street.
Newell
Newell.
Apartments.
Newell
Newell
Apartments.
Apartments.
Yep, my junior year was those apartments.
Okay.
And then, my senior year, that's a whole nother discussion. We're going to get into that.
Syracuse?
Yes. No. That's fatherhood. But go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but for the first 3 years, it was immersing myself in the college experience across the spectrum from, limited academic and choices and people in small town Connecticut to the whole world. Like for instance, one of the first things, being somebody with that considers himself a little swag, I made an effort to meet young women within the first few weeks of being on campus. And the first woman I met that I was attracted to was from Peru, and I had never met anybody from Peru.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay. And, father worked at the UN. So, my mind was already blown. Once again, a lot of people think of Connecticut as a affluent suburban state, but there's a lot of parts of Connecticut that are not that. And Connecticut is very closed-minded and very parochial. People within Connecticut don't go anywhere. So even me as a young man, like I would venture out to other Connecticut towns and venture out to New York. But even still to this day, for somebody to go from Hartford, Connecticut to New Haven, Connecticut, they very rarely do it. So to me, Colgate was my first cultural awakening. And when I say cultural awakening, because I met people like you, for Connecticut folks, New Yorkers were just folks you met from time to time or they came up to visit. But, New York set the standard, especially when it comes to the East Coast. At that time, and in many ways, well, of course, it still does because it's New York. So it was just me wanting to absorb as much as I could culturally and academically during my time there. And always the years before Colgate and the years at Colgate set the stage for where I am now as a man, as a business person, and that experience reverberates. And to your point, Jerry and Al, my core friend base is like 10 Colgate people. Yeah, maybe more, maybe 12, maybe 15. It's a lot. And as you know, I make an effort to stay in touch with folks and see them, when I can, as often as I can. So, that was my Colgate experience for the first 3 years, and then we can get into the next year. But I don't want to ramble on. We can.
No. But when you think back of your tenure at Colgate and highlights, are there highs to things that you feel like for your own standard, these were successful experiences or successful benchmarks, as well as are there things that you missed about Colgate? In other words, let's take the highs and then bring it back to like, if you had to look back, what do I miss about that experience?
Wow, highs. And to Al's point earlier, my highest high was entering fatherhood as a senior. So that automatically is, kind of puts everything else secondary. Obviously, the academic experience, the athletic experience, and my athletic experience, it wasn't what I expected it to be, but nonetheless still made me who I am. Because you come in as an athlete, you expect to play, you expect to do this, you expect to accomplish things because that's what you've always done. And when you don't reach that next level, or your talent doesn't carry you above others that are on the team, because my son actually ended up playing college football, and one of the things I told him as he was being recruited, I'm like, remember, at the college level, everybody's good. So, and everybody was all state, everybody was all city. So don't let it fool you that you're just gonna go there and dominate and have an immediate impact. So that didn't happen for me, but I became a dad. I started this Pan-African journey that, going back to what I said earlier, really started in the 80s with Pan-Africanism being part of the hip hop scene. And us being exposed to the fact that we need to embrace our heritage more as blacks, African Americans, whatever Negroes. There's been a many of terms associated with being black in America, but the 80s hip hop crystallized it for me to the point where I fell off, to be honest, going into the corporate world, but have re-engaged. So I would say the high being, and I distinctly remember Max Hilaire as the first professor I ever had from an African country, first teacher, instructor, period. And he would go on about Burkina Faso, this, and that, and I'm like, Burkina Faso. First of all, never heard of it. Second of all,
who that?
Yeah, and about it, of course, being who he was, by the time it was over, knew a whole lot about Burkina Faso. And guess where my first African trip was? To Burkina Faso.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and when I was told, okay, we're on a trade mission, and the trade mission is Ghana and Burkina Faso, boom.
So you didn't know prior to.
Yeah, exactly. And then that leads to another pinnacle that in my development I achieved there, participating in the Model OAU, the Model Organization of African Unity. And being typical, I partly participated in that just from the party standpoint. I'm gonna be straight up with it.
Keep it 100.
The Model OAU took place every year at Howard University in DC.
Say less.
Yeah, and it gets even better. Colgate would provide us a van to drive down and money, and the benefits of attending an institution like that. So Brian, Elder, and Hans turned me on to that. It's like, listen, this is the Model OAU. We should participate. We get to do this. And I was like, what? Hotel, spending money, and we got our own car, and we driving down?
Let's go.
Listen,
Let's do it.
Main Source albums still has special meaning to me, just because of that participation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let me interject for a second. So one of the things, another shoe memory is, so my wife Gina, same class as you. So once I graduated, I made a few trips up to campus. And one of my memories of traveling is meeting your son. For some reason, I can just remember it being a cold day. I kind of remember being at night. I remember being sort of off campus, and coming to see you and the newborn. And I just kind of remember leaving thinking, like, having so much respect for you and this journey. Cause it's like, wow, like, I remember how hard it was to graduate and being a brother on campus and all that's going on. And here this man is
doing it and having me there.
Doing it, and not only doing it, but has brought his family on campus. Like, you know what I mean? So it's one thing to have a kid and it's like, yeah, that's back there. But you were doing it where, if I remember correctly, right? I'm not just like fantasizing, right? Like this did happen, right? Like, so you had your family there, and I just left with so much respect for what you were attempting and accomplished, because I'm like, oh wow, that brother brought his family on campus, is doing it like that. So that's just one of my memories.
Had to finish.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Shout out.
Yeah, to that point, I didn't have an epiphany until a few years ago that I like to do things the hard way, and That's that example is a clear cut example of doing stuff the hard way. Once we decided to become parents, my ex wife and I'm like, y'all coming to campus. Like my child's not being born where you're in Connecticut or whatever, and I'm up here in upstate New York and may not be present for his birth or whatever the case may be. And at the time, obviously being that young, we were under a lot of pressure to even become parents from outside influence, mainly family. Like y'all too young, y'all should do this, and that. So
Already
I had
know.
to. What'd you say?
Already know.
Yeah, I had to become a man quick. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
no,
HOV.
yep, and take responsibility for three people immediately. And I mean that story alone is just like it's been so many fortunate things that I've been blessed with over the time. Even that story alone of bringing my family to campus is something that you can make a mini movie out of, an episode of some of these
Documentary.
yeah, one of these shows because I was trying to find adequate housing for three people and a newborn. And
In Hamilton, New York, that is not
exactly
exactly conducive
Right,
to
right.
embracing folk that ain't from Hamilton, New York.
with a limited budget.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Which,
So
which is
my
why.
apart my apartment search consisted of yeah, that's nice, I can't afford it, to everything else like damn, this is a hellhole. And I'm gonna tell you this quick story because once again, it just speaks to my experience there. I had looked at an apartment that was perfect, fully furnished, da 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 da, couldn't afford it. And this is pre social media, pre all that. The landlord came and found me on campus after I said I couldn't afford it and offered the apartment to me and my
Wow.
family.
Wow.
And the couple was named Joy and Larry Canning. And the crazy part is, gentlemen, she had recently had a miscarriage. She was in her early 40s. And
Uh,
she's like, I recently had a miscarriage and we would love to have a baby around.
wow.
So imagine
Wow.
moving into a fly. And they were log cabin builders. So they had the flyest log cabin in Hamilton, one of the flyest ones in Hamilton, because that's what they did. And they had a garage with the loft apartment that they would rent
Wow.
out to students. So they rented it out to us and basically became our surrogate parents while I was at Colgate with my oldest.
Wow.
Yeah,
Dope. 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 That's a movie right there.
yeah, yeah. But like you said, to me, I have so many pinnacles there, and I didn't even get to my friends. The friends that I still have in 30 years, like you guys. That our network is strong. We can say that unequivocally. And it's so strong that we got each other's back whenever we need to have each other's back at any time, phone call away. And that's another pinnacle because I talked to a lot of people and they were like, you still got friends from college and middle school, high school? I'm like, yeah, that's just how I'm built. And they're like, damn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So give me a sense of what do you miss? Like when you look back 30 years later, is there anything that you really miss about that experience?
Well, I mean, I think as any middle-aged person, you miss the carefree lifestyle on campus, and you miss the exploratory part of being a young person and just finding out what life is all about. Of course, being a former athlete, you definitely miss the athletic participation. You know,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
that we try to carry until our bodies say, yeah, you need to take a break, kid.
Pause.
Yeah, like right now.
Right. That's
But
when you
yeah, I
first
miss I
learn
miss all
about.
that. But as a father, I was able to live that again with my
Mm-hmm.
son. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, he played college football. So I've really had to been able to have the Colgate experience twice, and through my kids who are now making the same steps that I've made, and just like you guys, kids, with our guidance that we necessarily didn't have as young adults in the same situation because my parents didn't go to college. I think my mother did a couple courses, and my dad didn't even graduate high school. With no disrespect to him, he was able to have a nice career, 30 something years, and earn a good living that provided for his family. So but they just didn't have that same base. So I mean, I do miss just being able to explore and to understand, because there's a whole lot of things I was exposed to at Colgate
Mm.
that literally to this day I see um, have manifested themselves, especially when it comes to learning more about who I am as a or who I was or I am as a black person, as a child of the world, not just from Connecticut.
Mm.
Okay, okay, okay. So I'm looking forward to that part as we talk about who you are now, right? But first, let's take a little pause for the cause, and we'll be right back after this little break. So, this episode is sponsored by Hope Murals. Hope Murals is a nonprofit that provides adolescent youth with an interactive experience of creative expression via an urban arts platform that stimulates both mental and physical development. Please visit their website at www.hopemurals.org to learn more and find ways you can support the work they do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome back. Just definitely want to shout out Hope Murals, our sponsor. We appreciate what you do with our youth in terms of the urban arts platform, just stimulating their mental and physical development. Definitely looking forward to the new projects y'all got on this slate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Look,
We are excited too.
all right, looking forward to that. Also want to remind you, if you want to be a sponsor, please email us at aftergatepodcast@gmail.com. If you want to be a sponsor, talk to us. Quick shameless plug. I'm definitely shameless. Check out our Seed and Spark crowdfunding site for my TV series,
Yes, sir.
Pharaoh's Army. So go to seedandspark.com, search for Pharaoh's Army, give any amount, 10, 15, 20,
13.
$500, whatever you need, $13, right? Just show some support.
Talking
We
about
definitely
Colgate alum.
appreciate it. Definitely,
Yes, for
definitely,
sure.
definitely show
First
some
and
Come
love.
on.
foremost.
It takes a village, y'all.
It definitely takes a village. So please, please, please come show us some love. Definitely before I pass the mic to Jerry, let me show some love to our network. So I definitely want to let you know that if you like this show, if you like any other just dope podcast shows, go to our Defy Life Podcast Hub, which is www.defylifepods.com, and you can find your favorite podcast streaming stuff all over. And we are on all types of sites now. So definitely check us out, not just on Spotify and Spreaker and Google Podcasts. So just go look it up, go look us up. And apparently we were on iHeart. Is that right, Jerry? Like you was able to find us on
I,
iHeart
I
Radio?
I just did a Google search
Uh-huh.
for Aftergate podcast
Okay.
and it was scroll. I was like, oh wait,
Up.
did, I heart. Okay,
iHeart Radio.
okay. So let's,
Okay.
hey sponsors, let's get at us. We on a platform. Cats is
Check,
listening.
check us out, right? Come
Who
show us
who
love,
said
right?
who said the streets are listening?
Yeah, yes, your sponsorship will go to the support of our um interns. Like that's really why
Yes,
we're
sir.
trying to get
They
some.
don't know. Shh,
Right.
they don't know.
Okay. There. All right. Don't do that. But if you like written content, right, check us out at godefylife.com, and you also have branded apparel at defylifegear.com. So on that note, I'll pass it over to Jerry, and it's all yours, bro.
So welcome back, brother Morrison, aka Shoe, aka Kev, aka Shoebox for the old school heads.
Mm,
So we always like to throw a little curveball to our guests and talk about unrelated Colgate issues. And so with what's happening in the world right now, particularly Cuba and the protests that are occurring in the streets of Cuba and in Miami, where I currently reside. So it's interesting to see a different take on policies and protocols that involve protests that have been laws passed by Governor DeSantis, aka Baby Trump. And so, with that being said, want to know how do you feel about America's position, both locally between our relationship with Cuba historically and just the world, and how that plays out. What should we be looking at as the chess moves in international relations for the U.S. and Cuba play out?
Well, I mean, it's very interesting you state that, because, as stated, the being a staunch Pan Africanist now, and making moves as a Pan Africanist, my first approach is understanding Cuba's relationship to the world is through a Pan Africanist lens, having only recently learned how critical a role Cuba played in the liberation of African countries from colonialism, all the way up to even South Africa's recent liberation, having hosted Nelson Mandela and members of the ANC in Cuba. So, to me, like Haiti, let's bring them into the mix too. Cuba has been paying the price for being non-Western since the Castro regime came into place. Now, how they've managed that, over the years is debatable. But from a Pan Africanist lens, they managed it better than many others have managed it. Now, what that means, at this point, remains to be seen because there's a difference between the Castro regime and the current regime. And I think from my vantage point, the Cuban Americans that aren't aligned with some of the same principles that are in Cuba right now, more aligned with America's goals and the West goals, may see this as an opportunity to intervene. It's interesting how Cuba and Haiti are both, the countries that are literally the pariahs here in this part of the world because they're not with the Western values and of white supremacy. Let's be honest, that they're all of a sudden in peril, like they literally in jeopardy of having major issues any day now.
Absolutely.
Wow. Right.
Absolutely. I love the context in which you said that it's almost like because their alignment doesn't align with what's going on in the rest of the Western Hemisphere, they're treated differently.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Puerto Rican, and someone who's often asked, how do I feel about the future of Puerto Rico? I'm like, yo, we should be taking lessons from Haiti and DR and Cuba. And I'm not saying any one of those shit is the model, but what I'm saying is it's time to rise up.
Yeah, and being in a subservient position is never good for territories, countries that don't have to be. From Cuba to PR to Haiti, in any country, we as humans have the capacity to make, small island countries work to large
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And it comes
thrive.
back to and thrive,
Exactly.
yes, and not only exist but be a competitor in the international market.
Listen,
But they don't want that. They don't want that.
well, and you guys bring up a very good point because this is a perfect segue into what I've been learning just recently regarding international trade. And once again, we are kept away from a lot of information just because it's liberating information. Like the world of international trade is just so massive that really all countries, as we did prior to Western meddling, traded with each other all over the world, and I'll give you
The original open market.
exactly. From India trading with other parts of the world, from Western Africans having traded with the Native Americans here long before Columbus. Once again, tying it back to Colgate. First time I was exposed to Ivan Van Sertima. They came before Columbus.
Ooh.
And then that led me down the rabbit hole literally that I'm still on, and we're definitely gonna tie it back into current events. Like Ivan Van Sertima led me down to John Henry Clark later on in life. Joseph Ben Yakinen later on in life. Francis Cress Welsing later on in life. And when I say later on in life, right now. So those are the things that make understanding Cuba's relationship to the United States and to the rest of the world very integral because the Western world is looking to punish Cuba as soon as they get the chance. And like I said, this may be it. But if Cuba reaches back to its relationships that it has with African countries, that are themselves on a whole nother path for politically and from a trade standpoint. I think they can be a lot different and be in a situation where the West doesn't see this as an opportunity to overturn the apple cart, to use that term.
Excellent perspective. Excellent. I appreciate the non-Western hemispheric viewpoint, but that only comes from the opportunity to have experienced the international platforms that you have. And so it is a perfect segue into where you are now, who is Kevin, aka Shoe Morrison now, and sort of share with us how the Colgate experience has evolved into, the last 30 years of sort of that journey.
Wow, wow. I mean, that alone could be. I think we got a third show because
Trilogy.
yeah, and let's speak to one of the common threads that we share from then to now: entrepreneurship. Having sparked that seed a little bit more. I planted it when I used to be a paper boy. Believe it or not, gentlemen, I used to be a paper
All right,
boy.
me too. Shout out to the paper boys out there
Yeah,
who rode on a bike, not the dudes in a car who are just
definitely. Listen,
had a bike.
And wait. On Sunday, when the paper was thick, a wagon.
Hello.
All right, well, you talking about Connecticut and Queens, okay? In the Bronx, the paperboy ran the staircase in the projects, okay? And oftentimes it wasn't a good look.
It wasn't a good look.
It was a risky. It was a risky
You might not have made it to the 4th floor.
There was there was no health insurance for
listen, because they knew you was collecting money, Jerry. They knew you had money in your pocket.
Oh, come on, the setup. Sorry about that. We
No. Hey, that's half this interaction.
Amen.
Yeah, that's what 30 years gets you in this type of podcast.
Hello.
Yeah, and we can edit it in or edit it out. Either way, keep it in or edit it out.
It's all good. Good.
So, where I am now is I'm a full-time entrepreneur, and I have been for 12 years now.
Okay.
And that entrepreneurial journey started at Colgate.
Talk about it.
And having and being an entrepreneur at Colgate and actually following in your footsteps, to be honest, because you gentlemen had started the T-shirt business, the Kemet.
Good memory. Wow, what a memory.
Apparel line.
What a memory. Kemet wear.
Yeah. Let's use the proper term because that it'll make sense very quickly. We follow soon behind. When I say we, me and Hans, because and I'm almost certain it was Hans's idea to listen, man. Let's roll down to New York, grab some wholesale stuff. That, as you guys know, once again from Connecticut, I kind of knew it existed, but that didn't really until a dude from Miami, a Haitian immigrant with the French name. That's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother
let's go buy some stuff wholesale, bring it back up here, and sell it retail. Boom. So,
okay.
We got a booth in the student union selling T-shirts.
Those are referred to now as kiosks.
Pop-ups. They call them pop-ups.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
They call them pop-ups.
So, dude, literally, we selling Jamaican-themed apparel.
Oh, man.
Yes.
We're selling, remember the baseball hats with the flaps for the winter?
Yes.
Selling those. We were selling during spring weekend. Honey, I fall down. I can't reach my beer. Hans and I did that, and literally, I was able to fund my lifestyle for when my family moved up off of those entrepreneurial ventures.
Amen.
Wow.
We cleared like $1,200 each, me and Hans, and that money I used to move my family and get them all set up.
The hustle lives.
The legacy of Kemet wear.
Yes.
That's what's up.
Yes.
That's what's
up. For sure, without a doubt. And then, when I got the opportunity in 2009 to either stay in corporate, because I worked in corporate, several jobs, and good experiences overall. So
don't just pass over that. Give us a sense of what that was. You left Colgate.
And Colgate,
did what?
Was Colgate instrumental in that jump into corporate America?
Once again, yeah. I mean, my journey is one, and I will say this: I think a theme here is the strength of maintaining relationships. So I'm up at Colgate my sophomore year, and I had a great relationship with my high school guidance counselor. Believe it or not, an older Italian gentleman named Don Giolello, and I still owe him a Gucci watch. Actually, he's long
Oh
passed.
wow.
I owe getting one for him because we would always talk about that. Like Mr. Giolello loved me, and he loved another buddy of mine named Alan. I mean, so much so, like our office was his locker room. We used to come put our stuff in his office, come in there, chill, talk to him, hang out. So he calls me one day as a sophomore at Colgate and was like, "Hey, this organization called Inroads that's looking for interns."
Inroads. Yes.
Yup.
Yes. Yes.
I think you would be a great fit. And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, they give you summer jobs, you get paid." I'm like, "What?" Lo and behold, next thing I know, I'm an intern with SNET, which is the phone company for Connecticut that's long since been bought out by AT&T. And I'm working summers, after being declaring an econ major, I'm working summers at SNET as a corporate intern.
Yeah. Inroads was
For,
hot. Inroads was
yeah,
hot.
for those 2 years. And guess what? As a junior, that's when I met my ex-wife. So, once again, Colgate has brought me along that path. And, 3 children and a divorce later, three grown children, that's all part of the experience. So I started off in corporate, straight out of Colgate. And luckily, as we know, in 92, one of the recessions that we've lived through, several since then, jobs were tight in 92. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough as a new father, 6 months in, to have a job offer right before I even graduated. So I was able to secure income for my family by being an Inroads intern and maintaining that relationship with my guidance counselor that led him to call me 2 years into my college experience. And then I went to work for Northern Telecom, a telecommunications company that makes telephone equipment here at the big insurance company called Aetna. Basically in a customer service position, a help desk. Found out that I'm not cut out to sit in a desk. And Al, I don't know if you remember that. I used to call you on the line when I was at the help desk, bored out of my mind.
I do.
Here's a funny story. Here's a funny story. My dumb, I know we can't use expletives, but my dumb so-and-so didn't realize they was tracking all that. Because it was a
Monitoring.
company. They pulled me to the office. They were like, yeah, we noticed you got a lot of calls here. I was like, oh.
Oops.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get fired, but yeah, I had to get the hell up out of there real quick.
FCC charges.
Yeah, so I went to then go work for Inroads. So after Colgate, I did a stint, 70% corporate, 30% nonprofit before I became an entrepreneur. And the 30% nonprofit was 2 stints at Inroads, and then a stint at Northern Telecom, corporate, Xerox corporate, and Merrill Lynch corporate. So those are my 3 corporate experiences and my 1 nonprofit experience. So I've had a chance to be on both sides of the fence, which pretty much has led me to the point where I am now, which is being on both sides of the fence. We are a for-profit company, Morrison Group, that services the nonprofit industry.
Yes.
So
tell us about the Morrison Group.
Well, the Morrison Group is basically started off as a speakers bureau that morphed into a speakers bureau and training company that has then added the import-export and business consulting portion. So our 2 core businesses now are import-export / business consulting and job training, which is what we do primarily here in Connecticut, the job training piece. The import-export is what brings me all over the world, what brings me to all over the United States. And we facilitate training young adults and the disadvantaged population in this portion of Connecticut with job skills that help them either improve their career, start their career, or change their career. We cover everything customer service. Now we recently added cloud computing to the mix, OSHA training, and we've covered various topics throughout the years. Financial literacy, we still cover. OSHA training, we still cover. So we basically provide those training services to, about say about 400 people a year, to give or take, during the course of a 12-month period. And we secure those contracts through the formal bid process, which are called RFPs. I know you know,
Yep.
Jonathan, request for proposals, which guess what? Xerox prepared me for, because that's what I did. I serviced the public sector when I was at Xerox. And then, the international business consulting, the import export piece, actually I was brought into by another Colgate alum, our fellow friend you mentioned earlier before, Steve Williams. Steve and I built an aquaponics farm. Not actually, let me correct that. Steve built the aquaponics farm
All right.
with a nonprofit agency that he ran in Philadelphia. And he said, Kev, I know you recently made that entrepreneur jump, so you got a little bit more time on your hands than I do, because I still got to run this agency. Would you help me sell aquaponics? And I'm like, I have a trouble saying no, especially the business opportunities.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so long story short, the president of the local African Caribbean Business Council, and this is how random this is, fellas, either had a meeting at the aqua office where the aquaponics farm was located, or was walking by and was like, what is this? And then Steve's like, this is what it is. He's like, you guys got to come and show this to people in Africa. And that's how I started my journey in 2012,
Wow.
traveling to the continent. Exactly.
Wow.
I can still remember. This is, we talk about relationships and how we have stayed connected over 30 years. So that's 2012. I can still remember seeing a video that Steve sends me of this aquaponics system that he's saying, yo, Al, check this out. And oh, by the way, we trying to sell this to Africa. And so as you're talking through this story, I can remember the updates. I can remember the updates of the conversation that we're having, that, he's sharing, you're sharing, and how I kind of forgot how you got to where you are now. But as you're talking, it's all bringing these memories back. I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that video. So,
listen,
yeah.
And here's the crazy part. During that aquaponics journey, like I said, I still keep in touch with a bunch of Colgate guys. I'm having a conversation with Sheldon Spicer out in Chicago. He's like, yo, shoot, you need to come out here. Yep. And present this to the folks out in Chicago. So I did it. I went out to Chicagoland. And that's part of where I'm actually going to venture into, letting you know what entrepreneurship has meant to me and how it has shaped me. So we get a call in December from a gentleman that I did a presentation in Chicago like 6 years ago. He was like, hey, Kev, you still doing aquaponics? I'm like, this sort of, kind of. Why?
6 years ago.
Yes. 6 years ago.
That's
And
a
I was
hell.
like,
Hey, before I even go, that's a hell of a presentation. That 6 years passed, and apparently it was effective enough that they still were like, hey, if you can do what you say you can do, let's talk.
Here's the other lesson for the grinders out there who are listening, those who are actually out there grinding.
Yes.
Understand there's a difference between a no and a not now.
Mhm.
So apparently what you got 6 years ago was a not now, not a no. So always be on that grind and be listening to, if it's a no, okay, let it go. But if it's a not now, keep hope alive, because you never know when that not now might turn to okay now.
Why it's always important to bring your A game.
Yeah, exactly. And lead into the other things we can talk about, how being an effective communicator matters. Because to get a call 6 or 7 years later and from a dude, it's like, you still doing that? Because we just bought a country club and we want to build an aquaponics farm on the country club.
Whoa.
So, and once again, it's because of my relationship with Colgate, because I would have never went to Chicago. I didn't know anybody in Chicago. The only person I knew in Chicago was Sheldon Spicer.
And if I may, just let me interject right here on a point for a lot of folks who don't understand. Look at the various overlaps. You made reference to Steve Williams, Sheldon Spice, two African American men who were brought to Colgate for their football skills because all three of y'all were football recruits, not guys who tried out and made it as a walk on. No, Colgate spent money on sending coaches and scouts to see y'all and get y'all to come to Colgate because y'all had other options to go play football. And although none of you took football to a level beyond Colgate, at the end of the day, you leverage that to make the Colgate experience be relevant to whatever life brought you following. Steve, Philly guy, you Connecticut Southern Spices from where?
He's from Rochester originally.
Rochester.
Exactly, the
Okay,
Rock.
and Colgate, because of football, has in essence influenced the rest of your life.
Without a doubt. I mean, and like I said, still to this day, and this podcast being one of the examples, and in many examples, and I've stayed active as a Colgate alum from day one, and still incorporate Colgate and my friends and alum from Colgate as much as I can. And Colgate recently gave me an opportunity at a recent reunion to allow me to present which you gentlemen, Al came to it. I don't think you were there, dear. Yeah,
No, I
no.
was not.
But a member of the audience who was Al's year pulled me aside and was like, listen, Kevin, I have a company and we want to re-enter Africa because we used to do it. And I ended up doing business with them
There you go.
out of Philadelphia.
There you go.
And they make linen out of Georgia. So segue me into the import export piece because what we do is we help facilitate small and medium sized businesses importing and exporting from the continent of Africa to the United States. So right now we're currently engaged in several projects, everything from something as large as power plants in Southern Africa, which I just got word on, will be responding to a request for inquiry, all the way down to baobab powder and oil exporting from Kenya to here to the United States, and various things in between. We've had some success, some failures, but we're
Like
still
every entrepreneur.
exactly it's still plowing ahead. And I can comfortably say, 12 years later, we're still here, and you gentlemen, being fellow entrepreneurs, know how hard that is.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As so, one of the things I would be curious to hear your take on is, so as you've had these ventures to the motherland and come back from the continent and shared your insights in our conversations, I was actually sharing this with Jerry before the call, is that one of the things that you did for me was kill this narrative that the people, the folks over there in Africa, don't have an appreciation for us as Black folk over here in America. And that for many of us, along a lot of the myths, the things that the lies, the untruths that we hear as Black folk in this country, one of them is this idea that the people over there don't value us, don't appreciate us, don't want us to come back, don't. And I can remember you sharing like, nah, like, and I'm like, yo, Kev, that's not what I've been hearing over here. And you're like, Al, trust me, they miss us, they want us. Like it was just a
There's
whole
love.
nother,
There's love.
right. There was a lot of love coming from you. And I was like, all right, but that's not what I've been hearing. I went over to Cape Town, and that's exactly what I've experienced. So I'm curious just to hear your take on that in particular, this idea of some of the miseducation and how that feeds into the lack of engagement from us going back to there.
I mean, and you bring up a very good point, gentlemen, because this epitomizes America's problems keep it from being what it could truly be.
Mm.
And that the relationship we have with our ancestors on the continent epitomizes that. The reason the perception is, and there's some reality to it, that the African immigrants that are here in the United States don't deal with American descendants of slaves, the various terms that you want to call us, ADOS, is that they're told not to interact with us. So let me explain to you real quick how this breaks down, and especially for the audience. To immigrate from an African country to America, you have to go through an interview process at the embassy. And the embassy, they interview you and they can deny you for whatever reasons. You could wear the wrong suit and they can say no. But one of the things they do say, and believe me, one of the things they do say when you do pass the immigration interview at the embassies is that they tell the African immigrants not to deal with us when they come here.
Oh,
And I've
wow.
been told this several times.
Brainwash.
So when a Kenyan comes here, a Nigerian comes here, he sees us and be like, I ain't messing with them. The people at the embassy who allowed me to come to this great country told us not to mess with them. So there's some truth to that. But the reality is, once again, and I've said this in Africa countries many times, having survived the worst that can be thrown at a group of people, we can make anything happen as influence, or as indicated by our influence, our cultural influence alone, which extends into Africa deep. Deep. Like, they appreciate our journey here. They appreciate our swag. In Kenya, the public transportation system is made up of buses and small buses, minivans, we call them. They call them matatus. So they have a form of graffiti artists, especially, or billboards. So they paint all these matatus, the artists, and art, like, it's literally what we would consider graffiti and it's a combination of graffiti and billboards on buses.
Yep.
Guess who's on all the buses? We are. Frederick Douglass, Soldier of Truth, Lil Wayne, Kirk Franklin,
Wow.
Jamie Foxx, Ludacris,
American icons.
Marcus Garvey, Bob Marley, Floyd May. I'm telling you, we on every single bus. So how can you hate somebody? And this is just one country. This is Kenya. How can you hate somebody when your whole public transportation system is dedicated to us?
Who controls that? The government?
No.
Is that private?
Private. Private. Exactly. And once again, when I got there, I'm like, yo, what the? Mind blown. Mind blown. So that narrative is, as you know, Al, super false. And then again, once again, the denial of the connection and information is purposeful, in my opinion. So to that point, we eat the same food. They eat grits and greens in East Africa. And we consider ourselves educated. I didn't know that till I got there. It's like, hey, you want some of this? I'm like, oh, we eat that all day. And vice versa. It's like, y'all eat this? I'm like, yeah, it's called grits and greens. Yeah, we eat that. And in South Africa, they call grits pop. And in Western Africa, they call, they have a different form of a starch. They call it fufu, but it's made from cassava. But it's the same concept. It's the same food. We all
repackaged.
Yep. And I've been of late telling Africans, I'm like, don't be surprised that the rest of the world consumes what you eat, because it all started here. Of course you eat the same food.
Origin.
So to that point, that's brought me to being in a position where I get to live on the continent 6 months out of the year. I just got back from a 3-month trip. I've been there as long as 5 to 7 months, courtesy of COVID one time, where I was there maybe 6 months. And then the last time courtesy of a business venture, that, as well as the Kenyan election that interrupted the business venture, which was a hard and good business lesson to learn, but that kept me there for 5 months. So I've spent extensive times and have been to 9 countries on the continent and plan on retiring there. So, and as I've already told you, gentlemen, you guys have a home there. You do right now, let alone as we continue to advance in life. You'll have a bigger home there. It won't be, what my 2-bedroom apartment now that I keep in Nairobi. It'll be much more than that. We'll see.
Morrison Estates.
That's what's up.
Don't let them fool ya.
Well, then here's the thing. That's what the opportunity that Africa offers everybody, but especially offers us.
That's
Like,
what's up.
So with that said, now you've taken us to sort of the journey of how Colgate has been relevant in your post 30-year evolution. Um, if you could look back and give counsel to an 18-year-old Kevin Morrison coming into Colgate at 18, a 21-year-old Kevin Morrison leaving Colgate coming into the world, what would you say? What would be your gems of wisdom?
my gems of wisdom would be if you have that entrepreneurial spirit, keep it alive. Don't let the corporate, don't let being a teacher, whatever that main career is, or that main career you choose to enter in after Colgate, keep that, as we call it, side hustle alive, because that side hustle literally can save your life, especially in light of what we've seen economically in the last few years.
Mm,
Because if you rely on one source of income or one institution to take care of you and your family, then you
mm,
putting yourself at risk.
mm,
And the great thing about Colgate, it polished us to make impressions, even amongst ourselves. Like managed that we managed to maintain these 30-year relationships. So that preparation counts. That polishing counts. And the institutions that you attended prior to Colgate polished you, and of course, the main institution is the family that polishes you before you get anywhere. Along the line, institutions like Colgate, experiences like Colgate, add shine to that polish. To the point, like I said, even to now, I interact with my Colgate circle, as Jerry can attest, every day.
Quite
Having
regularly.
recently having recently visited Miami, and I'll tell this real quick. When we pulled up to Jerry's house, I just recently moved my son there. He was like, "Dad, you sure we got the right address?" I'm like, "Yo, man, this is," he said, "where he live here. This is where we going." And he said that because it was that nice. Let alone,
Yeah, yeah.
kudos to Mr. Dubois. We pulled up. I'm like, oh,
appreciate you.
Come on, come on. You know how we do it.
And
listen,
it talks to
and
that generational love because I've already let his son know, yo, I got you. If you need
Yeah.
me for you, Miami, I've seen it swallow and spit out grown men. Don't think it can't happen to you, but be smart about it. And he's a good brother. The DNA is alive and kicking.
listen, and we
Morrison.
had that. Listen, it's funny you say that, Jerry. I reiterated that conversation. I was like, now you heard what Mr. I said Jerry, but I probably said Mr. Dubois first. I was like, you heard what he said. Like, people don't come down here and walk left with the tail between their legs. And it's funny, it's reminiscent because I had the same comment made to me my first trip to South Africa. She's like, "Don't come here like no arrogant American. We'll send you home with your tail between your legs."
Hmm.
So that rang the bell twice for me when you said it, Jerry. And the same thing. Well, having left Hans, who's a lifelong friend, live in Miami too, having witnessed his success over the years, and being able to drop off my son and not worry
Hmm.
at all.
At all.
With his mother calling every day, "He all right? You talk to him?" I'm like, "I don't need to, but yeah, he's good." I say, 'cause if anything jump off, he has the Colgate connection strong.
Amen.
That that's what this
So my
brotherhood is
advice
all about.
is yeah, those relationships, and all three of us can speak to that at length because we've made relationships with underclassmen that were underneath us that I've maintained relationships with, and classmates ahead of us that I still maintain relationships with. And as I stated before, I can literally pull up to every major East Coast city and holler at somebody I maintain a relationship with, probably from Colgate, as well as from other relationships. But keeping those relationships strong are important. And in the communication age and in the information age,
Yellow.
I think it's a lot easier.
Up.
Well, if you think you got the East Coast support lockdown, what you've made me or what you've allowed me to appreciate and discover is that you're creating an international platform for brothers to expand. And ain't too many brothers as strong as the Colgate connection is. I can say you are in a select group of brothers who are opening up that true Pan Africanist pipeline for brothers to expand and sisters to expand their uh, their entrepreneurship opportunities across the Atlantic Ocean. Thank you for that.
Facts, because they're definitely on a bucket list of mine to either travel with him on a trip or meet him out there while he's out there.
Oh yeah.
That is definitely something that, as we have communicated, that this is something that I will do in my life to either hang out there with him.
This is a perfect opportunity for me to put this on the table.
Yes, sir.
I live next to ancient Kemet in Kenya.
Mm.
And having known now that the Nile Valley civilization started in Kenya and Uganda and made its way up the Nile to its zenith in Egypt, when we go into Kemet?
Oh wow. Wow.
Kemet brothers. The Kemet brothers.
You know what's crazy? You know what's crazy about this is that when Alvin and I were in the planning stages of the podcast, one of the things we talked about was, because it came up, Kemet came up, was the reignition, the revitalization, the reincarnation of Kemet in the span, in the frame of Aftergate as a way to reconnect to AOC across decades intergenerationally. And whether it's merchandise from apparel to gear that just highlights AOC and what cats are doing in the world via the platform, via the merchandise. And so I literally could see, real talk, Colgate putting up dough to sponsor a comedic retreat for AOC.
That would be
awesome. And having immersed myself, and we didn't even get to that, having immersed myself into Africa obviously involves a cultural and historical piece. And the most influential people in Eastern Africa are the Nilotic people, the South Sudanese, the darkest people and the tallest people on the planet. And knowing that they're the base of ancient Kemet, which consists of Sudan, South Sudan, and Egypt, like literally, I say this all the time. I've reconnected to the battery that charges us to the day. We've been running on a charge from Africa that we really ain't really charged back. We ain't really connected back into.
We are reserves. We are reserves.
On then some.
Yes. And at some point the light flashes. You need to recharge.
I feel like we at that point.
As a people, we need to recharge. We need to reconnect with the continent. I'm leading that way for sure. I have to.
I think when Black Panther dropped, it was a way in which Hollywood, not that they did this consciously, but because we're so consumed with media and with entertainment, I think for many folks seeing Black Panther and the idea of Wakanda really visualize what you're talking about. It just wasn't presented as a recharge. It was like, this is what goes on. This is what y'all could be. This is what could be. But there needed to be a call to action that the movie ended with to say, come home.
Yes. But to that point, Jerry, the president of Ghana did it in 2019.
Okay.
With the 400-year anniversary of the transatlantic slave trade, or our first, is it 1619? Yeah, the 1619.
1619.
Yeah, our first landing here under bad conditions.
Under colonialism.
Bad conditions, quote unquote.
Don't say bad conditions,
right?
Because I get emails on, we have bad conditions approaching North Bay Village.
Right.
Prepare accordingly. Those wasn't bad conditions.
Yeah.
Just jacked up conditions.
So the president of Ghana apologized and invited us back, and they've reaped the benefits tremendously. As you know, Ghana is hot as a firecracker right now when it comes to our reconnecting with Africa. Ghana leads the way.
I believe, offered a citizenship for those who want to come back.
Yes.
So I think one of the things as we kind of get close to wrapping up, I think one of the things that is just sound amazing, listening to your story, every person that we've had on so far, and it's this idea that regardless of what people are doing outside once they've left Colgate, there's just been this sense of service and this
Mm,
idea of making this world a better place. However
true.
you see it,
Mm,
in your own version, your own lane. But every person so far has been an amazing servant leader. And so I think that is something to acknowledge. As we'll see if we ever break that stint, break that record of people as we bring on. But so far, everybody we brought on, people have been committed to making this world a better place. And I think your story is one of a
absolutely.
person that has definitely in your way, in your lane, in a way that also not made the world better, but very connected, integrated approach to it. Whether it's integrating us, America, back to the United States, being a connector of the brothers and people at that you went to school with. So I think that's something that I hear in your journey is this connection. So shout out to you and in what you've done as a father, as an entrepreneur, as an alum. And you're exactly why we're doing this podcast, giving voice to those who have made an amazing contribution after they've left Colgate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amen.
Absolutely, right?
I
So
appreciate that, and of course, um, all kudos go to you gentlemen just for even coming up with this concept. Being the men that you are, being having the media savvy to say, listen, we have let's develop a platform to tell these stories
mhm.
that because of the development in technology that will literally live on forever. My great great grandkids can watch this podcast and be like, "Oh,
Facts.
that's granddad."
That's what he was dropping back then.
Yeah, exactly.
He was dropping the
So
same thing back then as he's dropping
It's
now on the
it's
porch.
funny because one of our chat. Okay, so I'm gonna bang you in the head with this. One of our challenges is you need to send us some photos of when you was on campus, whether you was playing football or you was walking across the quad, where you was in the dorm. Because one of the things that we want to do with the platform is through our interns who are managing the social media is bring that nostalgic element back to the show when people are able to see images that take them back to the 80s, 90s, or whatever decade they were there. And so, with that being said, I often think, wow, imagine if we had been at Colgate with the technology of cameras and phones that they have now,
yeah,
because we have some basic photos because we was, able to have access to some cameras. But the whole idea of media and catching every moment of your life wasn't a part of the culture as it is now. It wasn't embedded in the fabric. And
true,
so all
very
we
true.
have are these stories and those moments where we do have photos, but everybody has something. So we're really trying to recreate not only for the archives, but to allow there to be visuals that align with the stories that we tell from being on campus to also what life has been since Colgate. So please dig into your boxes, dig into your files. I don't know where you got, find some photos. Our interns are like, yo, tell your
Where the
people to
questions
send
at?
us.
Where those
They're
pictures at?
they're this is the first lesson in managing up. They're like, yo,
Yes,
you want us to do this, but we need the content. So I'm like, all right, let's go. So let you, and our interns are about to harass you for the next 48 hours. We about to unleash them on you to get those content.
yeah. I've sent one. I
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
I gotta dig
We seen
and
them.
find
We
some
seen them.
more.
We see. Start digging.
Yep.
Start
Yep.
digging.
Yeah. Yes, I
So
will. Digging and making phone calls because that's another thing too. Because of these relationships that we've maintained, we know we all got pictures of each other because we
right,
post
Facts.
them
right.
on Facebook all the time.
Okay.
And the follow up is to promote it because I don't know what platforms you're on, but to be able to you can copy and paste some of the images that we'll use and put them on your platforms, and also think about folks you're like, yo, have you heard from such and such? You might want to call them. You might want to interview them because they're doing some stuff. Because even though we know Steve, we don't know everybody. Everyone you're talking to.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And we, on a side note, we will definitely have those discussions because, as I told you, I've maintained relationships, so I still keep in touch with
gentlemen all the way down to 95, class of 95. So
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Nice reach.
like Andres Vasquez, Jamal Swinton.
Okay.
Um,
Shout
I went out to
outs.
California to see Bubba and Jamal.
Oh
So
yeah,
actually,
I remember Bubba.
What
yep,
was
yep.
good?
Yeah, we stayed with him. My daughter and I visited and stayed with him, and I hung out while my daughter was out there doing some things.
Well, hey,
Uh,
these are cats you need to shout out, plug them into the podcast, and let's reel them in. Let's reel them in.
Let's
yeah,
keep
yeah.
building.
And Andres is an award-winning videographer, so
Oh
he
yeah.
Hello,
travels all over the
we
world.
we we need him. Sidebar, we need him.
So quick
Yeah.
surprise question.
Uh-oh.
Any regrets you have
Oh, you put
when
roll
you
it,
think of, when you think about
roll it.
your Colgate years? Any regrets?
Yes, actually, it's the one that comes to mind is not immersing myself more with in two ways in Black American, African American history, not immersing myself more. I immerse myself, but not enough. And then the second thing would be taking more opportunities to visit HBCUs and understand their experiences and getting a taste of that. Colgate's ties are international and are tied to what some people consider some of the best institutions in the world, like the Harvards and
Ivies,
that's
the
always
Ivies.
that's part of the campus experience. But we were the only people talking about HBCUs when we were there, and because that just wasn't the scope of Colgate's relationships when
Right.
it comes to a university, or just maybe even encouraging a university to do more of that, because you gentlemen know that mattered to us when we were there.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
yeah, and as you can see now with the recent, like the Ta-Nehisi Coates becoming a professor at Howard, and then the woman that wrote the 1619 project becoming
Oh,
a professor.
power moves.
Exactly. And Deion Sanders now coaching and recruiting, all
Jackson
those
State.
things tie to all of us near and dear as former athletes and as Black students who went to predominantly white institutions. Like the moves that the HBCUs now are making, to me, just reiterates the point that for institutions like Colgate to maintain their students that would have an affinity towards their universities, they need to have better relationships with them. So those are the two things that I regret. Not, I won't say
Okay.
that going to an HBCU, but then again,
Hey,
maybe I would have.
you could have did a semester from Colgate at an HBCU on some student exchange and just had that opportunity to experience the different setting.
Yep.
Exactly.
And that was really a missed opportunity from our institution, because honestly, there's been
Nah,
Colgate alums that have actually, Black men that have left Colgate, become presidents of HBCUs.
talk about it.
I'm thinking in particular, we've had one that was a president of Morehouse, and when you look at the colors that a Morehouse has right now, they actually stem to Colgate's colors. And I think that's something that many Colgate people, as well as Morehouse, well, actually, no, Morehouse people know. It's Colgate people who don't understand that same maroon that you see at Morehouse comes from a
Al,
Colgate alum.
such a perfect point. We should have a direct relationship with Morehouse.
We should.
One of
Because
Morehouse's most influential and longest standing presidents was a Colgate
it was a
alum.
Colgate alum.
Right.
And honestly, when I'm at a
Come on.
Morehouse homecoming, I intentionally wear Colgate paraphernalia.
Here.
So that when people who know the truth, there's been many a student who has paid attention orientation, who
Yeah.
understands where his colors, the maroon, comes from, and he'll be like, hey, sir, do you know that Colgate? And I know. That's why I'm rocking this. I'm
Hey,
And how influential has Morehouse been in American history?
in
Correct.
producing leaders.
So,
Yes.
So definitely a misstep in our institution's engagement.
We gotta get that. We gotta get that content up on social media platforms, because
Let folks know.
that is the
historic.
epitome of trivia. That story is not told, and we
Yes.
need to tell it.
Yeah, like
So
there's multiple institutions on Morehouse's campus named for this president who was a Colgate alum.
correct, and we not making that connection.
No, and
So
literally we just found out about this recently, all of us.
well, I've known about it for a few years because me living in Atlanta, intentionally rub it in the faces of
Hey,
all my
you have access to
homeboys
Morehouse,
that
yeah.
are Morehouse alums. So as you know, Morehouse men are very particular cats, and they are
Mm.
very proud. And when I'm in my kind of obnoxious way where I want to just kind of put them in a place, I'm like, yeah. I might be doing y'all thing, but do you know where your colors come from? Oh, they come from that
Right,
Colgate
right,
alum that went
right.
to my institution. So it just kind of reminded me of that. But so sir, here's your chance. We like to give folks an opportunity to promote, to give whether it's social media handles, whether it's websites, whether it's future events, whatever it might be. We want to give
Investment
you
opportunities. If you need interns, I think you need to tap into some Colgate students. You need some interns working with you on some international work. Plug
Yes,
it.
yes. Oh,
here's the opportunity. The floor is yours. What would you like to share?
well, first and foremost, we would like to promote our latest business venture. So stay on the lookout for a Comcast commercial featuring Morrison Group and our strategic partnerships with a coffee company out of Kenya. We're importing coffee from Kenya to the United States called Karan Guru Coffee. We are also developing a relationship with a franchise, actually a Southern Florida-based franchise called Farm Stores, to carry Karan Guru coffee here in Connecticut and hopefully as many stores as possible. So stay on the outlook for that. Also visit our website at morrisongrp.com. That's MORRISONGRP.com. That speaks to our job training and opportunities for people to enhance their skills. That speaks to our international import and export and business consulting business. And we're looking to continue to push the envelope to, like I said, build those relationships first and foremost through trade with Africa. And then that leads to the other cultural experiences, cultural exchanges, all the way down to the personal invitation that I extend to any Colgate alum, any person that wants to visit the continent of Africa, especially while I am there,
Hell
as
yeah.
stated. Uh, having visited 9 countries and will visit many more in my lifetime, and demystifying the continent,
Oof.
being able to say to people, yeah, the reason I like Kenya is because the cops don't carry guns.
Right,
So,
right,
you
right.
know, I could roll up on a traffic cop in Kenya, give him dap and a hug, and he would do it. He would hug me back. He would be like, "Okay, let me pull out my gun. This dude is rolling up on me," because that's not
Uh,
the culture.
the demystification of African culture. I love it. I love it.
So, like I said, just stay on the lookout for those things, and by all means, there's definitely investment opportunities. There will be a huge forum that will be hosted by another Black American who's moved to Kenya at the end of the year. That will host about 150 to 200 Americans for 6 days on the coastal city of Kenya called Mombasa, and this will include entertainment from the likes of very high level entertainers slated. Names that we all well know. I'm not going to mention them because I don't think they've been secured yet. But
No
part of that
promos,
is,
no promos.
yeah, part of that event will be sitting down in a forum and finding out the investment opportunities there.
Okay.
Uh, the one thing that Africa provides for us in particular, when I say us, the circle that we're speaking to, is investment opportunities up the wazoo. When I say up the wazoo, everything from mining. Right now, I have an offer on the table for 2 ruby mines for
Oh, wow.
seeking investors.
You don't hear that every day. Ruby mines. Let's just go
Yeah,
get these rubies out of this.
well, and that's the thing about the content. Like sitting down and having rubies put on the table, raw rubies, going to visit diamond mines, um,
Wow.
you realize, why well, not why, I won't say why. Um, you see why people with bad intentions would come into the continent and take advantage of it. Because even after the exploitation, it literally all is still there to this day.
Mm.
So being able to see,
That's why it was exploited, because they saw the excess.
yes, and it's all still there. Like you want to talk about organic food, all still there. Like everybody farms on the continent. All the raw materials needed to produce everything in the world is still there.
Which is why it's the center of civilization.
Exactly.
That's not by accident.
No, and there you go. Thank you, Jerry. And to that point, and we have access to that. Even though have been told there's nothing there, it's the total opposite, fellas. Total opposite. Everything is there.
Wow. I feel like we could go on with like a whole nother 7 questions that we
Yeah,
would
yeah, exactly.
come up with, just because the flow has been so enlightening, and I think you've opened a portal. I look at it as you've opened a portal to the AOC community, for those who are not even envisioning life on an international platform, who have just, spanned the, coast to coast level, and think like, okay, there's levels of success, but see the opportunities on the international platform, and the fact that you are the many ways I look at you as a gatekeeper of those opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Cats need to really heed the advice, heed the gems of Brother Morrison, and I thank you for being on the show and sharing your knowledge with us.
Yes, and thank you too. And as stated, based on our connection, we could probably do this another 2-3 hours. So,
But on that note, though, I appreciate you. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, your voice. Want to shout out our listeners. Thank you for all those who continue to support Aftergate. Each week we are getting more and more listeners, so I appreciate that. So this has been another episode of Aftergate, powered by the Defy Life Network. I appreciate y'all. Continue to support us. Continue to listen to us on the different platforms. As always, we definitely want to shout out our interns.
Yes,
Mad
sir.
love to our interns, from Sophia to Kathy to Izzy. They are doing all of that significant special work on social media, as well as just communicating with our guests. Mad love to y'all. And just check out more episodes to follow, because we got more and more dope guests. So appreciate y'all, and mad love. Peace,
Yes, sir.
family.
Yes, sir. Peace.
please.
Shh. You hear that? Listen closer. That, my friend, is the deafening sound of focus. It drowns out all the useless noise that can clutter the moment. Naysayers don't exist. Haters? Smaters? The peanut gallery? Who's that? When you in your zone, all that noise and all that buzz is just elevator music. So, enjoy your journey, focus on your goal, and bask in the quiet roar that is progress. Because when it's your time to shoot that shot, spit that verse, or close that deal, the only voice that matters is yours. Defy Life.